Right now. Thank you. Owl,
Yep, and then unclick blur my background.
thank you. And then mute, it is the L3, echo countdown. Is that right?
Yep, should be right.
Mm.
And then if you want the participants to be up there, you can just drag it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I don't see it for the phones.
Happy holiday, fly safely, have fun.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll probably slide to you tomorrow, because I feel like I always need something, but
Sounds good to me.
So do I have to mute myself on this,
Yes. And then the owl will pick you up.
I turned my sound down.
Thank
night.
you. Thanks for your help.
Dan, Christmas.
Bye.
Oh, will this screen get bigger? That's when we get,
It, the one that you're on right there,
yeah,
it will, actually it'll get, more people will come into it.
okay.
Now, why is that?
So I guess we're all set then. Okay. Get my glasses here. You gonna be around here for Christmas, Mike? Yeah.
Yeah. The less I can deal with this crazy traffic, the better. Today I was just coming up and I'm in the middle lane on 35 and somebody comes up behind me, flashing lights, like flashes their lights on me. There's nobody in the passing lane, nobody, like at all, at least a quarter mile behind and a half mile ahead of me. Gets right up behind me, swings over to the right and swings, I have to get over. So I thought he was gonna hit me, like there was barely enough room for the car, and I'm like, what were you?
My wife was coming down Everton here, by Menards.
Yeah,
She's going 33 miles an hour and this girl's been kind of tailing her too close. She's driving and the guy slows down, so she slows down to 33. Boom, just hits her head on in the back. Both going 35 miles. She was going 40, I guess, and hit Doris when she's going 33. So fortunately, it wasn't our fault. I just talked to the insurance company, so we're not gonna have any issues with it, but.
Yeah, what a hassle.
So a 16-year-old, she just started to drive. Big Cadillac. So it's, you never know what's gonna happen, so it's really scary. And that's on a little side road.
I almost got hit today on 35W.
Yeah, people are crazy out there.
I was in the middle lane and there was somebody in the left lane and they were not, I mean, they were not going very, I wasn't passing them on the right, but they were, you know, we were kind of like right beside each other. And people were coming up behind her and she just came over into my lane.
Yeah,
Didn't signal, she just kind of went, ooh, into my lane, and I stopped my brakes, I actually even honked. Cause I was like, and when I got into the left lane and passed her, and I kind of looked over at him, and it was like, it was practically, she was asleep at the wheel or something, she was just like, just driving slow. Down 35W.
so I don't have to unmute, I'll just talk through this, the center owl, right? Yeah,
Sure.
Yes.
it doesn't sound like my voice is being picked up.
Have we,
I don't have anyone in the waiting room yet.
Wow, there's only two of us here, huh?
And they're coming now. Greg, Manager Baki, Manager Taves, Greg Grasky, and Chuck. Here they come. Manager Loth just entered the waiting room. Here he comes.
Can everyone hear me?
Greetings, one and all.
Okay, good.
yes, did they respond?
Well, he just shook his head.
Can someone speak? We're
Can
gonna,
someone speak?
I'm here.
yeah. The
Hello.
volume, and then Danielle,
And let me see if I can figure
Maybe,
this.
I've got my volume turned down, is that an issue?
nope, you're supposed to have it off.
It should be. Can someone speak now, please?
This is Chuck.
Sounds good and
Testing.
strong. Good. Okay, sounds like we're in business.
Thank you all for your patience. I just had one more button to push.
But do you know the launch codes?
Good evening, everyone. Our clock here shows 6:30, so I'm going to call the Comfort Lake, Forest Lake Watershed District regular meeting to order here for December 20th. Welcome everybody to the meeting, and let's start by doing a roll call for attendance. Beth, if you could do that.
Absolutely. Manager Baki.
I am present.
Manager Lowe.
I think that was me.
Manager Taves.
I'm here.
President Schmaltz.
Here,
Manager Anderson.
Present.
good. Got a full quorum, that's great. Moving on then to the next topic is setting the meeting agenda. Are there any changes or additions? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. And Beth, if you could please do another roll call vote.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Lowe.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on then to the consent agenda, we have only one item this evening, the regular board meeting minutes of November 16th, 2023. Are there any additions or any corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. And we have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Beth, another roll call vote, please.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Lowe.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on then to the next topic, which is providing an opportunity for the public to comment on our 2024 budget and levy. Is there anybody in the audience or on the Zoom that would like to make any comments or suggestions on the budget that was proposed September, I think it was? Again, I'll ask if there's any public comments to be made about the budget that was presented last September. Okay, and hearing no comments, then we'll close that session and move on to the public open forum. And I declare the forum open. Are there anyone in the audience that would like to make comments to the board? I'll ask again, is there anyone in the audience that would like to make comments to the board? Okay, hearing none, then I'll close the public open forum. Moving on then to the Citizen Advisory Committee update. Mike, are you gonna cover that, or Aiden?
Mr. President, Manager's right. There was no CAC meeting in the month of December.
Okay,
So, meeting is planned now for January.
okay, thank you.
Just to add to that, Mr. President, managers, as Mike stated, we did not have a meeting this December. It was canceled. So I'll give you an update in January about our activities then. And one reminder for folks that we will be looking for managers to sign up to attend CAC meetings in the 2024. And I will send out scheduling for that early in the new year. We had a lot of benefit from that, I felt, and the committee felt, and so I encourage everyone to sign up for a slot if they are able. I'll be communicating that in the new year.
Good, thanks, Aiden. That'd be a good suggestion. So we'll look forward to being able to participate in some of those meetings. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, moving on then to aquatic invasive species year-end report. And if I recall, I think Jared had made a recording of the presentation.
Yes, Mr. President, managers, I hope everyone has had the opportunity to view those. Very well done presentations. Garrett is here to kind of go over those, the question, and any questions, and then also discuss the other reports that are included in that section. So I don't know, President, if you want to start with comments or questions on the video and then go to the other, items, or?
Yeah, I think if, maybe we just take the subject ABC as been listed here, and then if anybody has a comment, starting with, watercraft inspection reports. Well, first of all, wasn't there a year-end report? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a written report, very
Right.
well done. I think, it's online in the board packet, but then also, Aiden did a, YouTube summary, which again is really great, and I hope we can share it, you know, both with the Lake Associations and the managers, and of course Garrett is here this evening to, address the board and answer any questions.
So do
Well-
we have any questions on that first part?
Manager Schmaltz.
Yes, go ahead, Manager Baki.
I just want to compliment Garrett on the YouTube video because it did provide a lot of detail and it answered many questions. So I'm completely satisfied with what he presented in the YouTube video, and I want to just commend him for doing a fine job.
Great, thank you, Manager Baki. I thought he did an excellent job also, very professional. Any other questions or comments?
The only comment I have is that if we're going to provide this video or this taped meeting for the public, we should at least have Garrett, I think, do a summary of those reports, because they were very good. But share that as part of our meeting. I think he can go through them fairly quickly, but I'd like to have them as part of this record.
Correct, and there's also just the other items included in that AIS section that were not part of the recording, so,
Mhm.
you can certainly go over those as well.
Good.
At this meeting or for future reference?
Whatever the board's desires, I mean, he's here if you, I know we gotta have a few things on the agenda, but I think we have time to at least, go over some of these, so.
I had one, just first of all, anybody else have any other questions? On the first introductory part that he presented? Garrett, I had a question, on the, Forest Lake budget versus expenses. If there's any way you could pull that page up. It's the two pie charts that you did.
Yeah. I think I can. Beth, am I able to screen share?
Yeah, I will set it up so that you can. Sorry about that.
Nope,
We
no
were
worries.
missing a couple slides there.
Sorry, bear with me. Bunch of tabs open still. Okay, so that's what you're talking about, President Schmaltz?
Yes.
I'm gonna need to.
It's fine.
I'm gonna have to switch how this is being displayed, and this might be out of my wheelhouse. I should have had someone stay. I apologize, President Schmaltz.
It's showing up on the screen back for everybody, so.
You are, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Just,
it's on the screen. The question I had was that we show expenses of 96,627 for the year. And then, on the left-hand side, we show the budget and the funding, and Forest Lake, and the city of Forest Lake is shown as contributing a little over 17,000. And I just wanted to raise the question, and we don't have to answer it tonight, but is that the amount that came out of the contract that we had with the Lake Association, the city and so forth?
Correct,
Because
yeah.
it looks way smaller than it should be. And that's why I raised the question, so. I mean,
Actually, sorry, it's up
their share
quite a
should be
bit from last
42.
year. I'm sorry.
Yeah, their share should be 42%, same as the watersheds. And if you subtract Washington County out of the 96, that gives you 71,000. And if you take 42.5% of that, it's 30,000. And you don't even have the cost of the harvesting in that, which should be in there also, which is probably well over 40 or 50,000. So I just wanted, has that contract been fulfilled yet, Garrett? Has everybody signed off on it, or are we still working on it?
Yes, and these numbers and these figures on the graph right here are what we received for payment through that contract. It doesn't, the total percentage here is what our budget was. So it doesn't quite align with what that agreement says with the, 42.5% split for the city, 42.5% for us, remainder for the Lake Association. So I think that's maybe where some of the confusion is.
Okay, Jerry is out of the country, so I couldn't talk to him. So would it be possible, rather than just dragging this on tonight, could you just send me the copy of the contract and what was, and the reconciliation for the year for 2023? That you.
For sure.
If you can send that to me, and has Jerry seen it?
Yes, he should have been CC'd on that email as well. I had included a spreadsheet that shows what we spent, and then has a breakdown of what each partner contributes to that overall agreement.
I don't recall seeing that, so I must have missed that. Okay. If you could send that to me, that'd be great. And then we can work on this, offline if there's any other questions.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll make sure you get that.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we should just go back to each section, and then maybe if you could show the section heading, and if anybody has any questions on it or wants to get into any more detail, we could. That'd be the quickest way to go through it, I think.
My plan, and obviously the board can decide however they would like to kind of dice this up. I was mostly just coming to the meeting to present the material, say that our AIS watercraft inspection program and Blue Water Science reports are all available. It's a ton of content, hundreds of pages if you include all the Blue Water Science. So we wanted to give folks time to digest all that. And kind of what we did last year was have me at this meeting answer some questions, but then ultimately come back in January at a meeting to have the board approve these reports. And at that time, I'd answer even more questions, and then also have Steve McComas with me to do a presentation on some of his findings as well. I can do a super brief kind of overview of some of the highlights that would take about 5 minutes. But after that, I was just kind of planning on opening it up for questions. And then, like I said, ultimately coming back in about a month when people have had time to really go through things and address any other questions or concerns at that time. If that works and makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Let's follow that recommendation.
Okay, perfect.
So why don't you go ahead and get started, and we'll see where it takes us.
Good deal. Okay. So yeah, I want to keep things short. I know there's a lot to get through at the end of the year here. And I know I can be a little long-winded with my year-end presentations, hence why we're continuing to do the pre-recorded stuff. That way I don't feel quite as rushed. But just some high-level bullet points. Again, all the detail you could want are in those year-end reports. So take a look there. But just starting off with the AIS year-end stuff, pre-leaf pondweed treatments we conducted just on Shields and Forest Lake this year. Both were excellent treatments. Again, we went with Diquat over Aqua Falque just because of the prices. And on Forest Lake, looking at the assessment survey, it's probably some of the best control we've had since I've been with the district. So I was very impressed with just the survey work and the application, because it seems the two together really knocked it down this season on Forest and also on Shields, but we kind of always expect to get it all on Shields. Lake associations are continuing to manage EWM, and both are doing a very good job of containing it. Both went with Bracellachord treatments this year, so hopefully those locations treated get at least a few seasons of control, kind of what's advertised by the manufacturer of that product. Flowering rush, we made some changes this year on Forest Lake. We had some feedback and comments from Lake Association members, lake residents, and so we made some changes that you heard about over the year, where we implemented first a test of backpack spraying, where we had PLM walk Basin 1 of Forest Lake with backpack sprayers and treat things as they went, which ultimately led to a final treatment, I believe at the end of September, where they walked the entirety of the shoreline on Forest Lake, so quite a big undertaking, and did a very thorough job making sure that every flowering rush that they found along the way was treated. So we were extremely pleased with the outcome of that treatment, very happy with our partnership with PLM and the Lake Association for making that happen. Like I said, big undertaking, so we were just happy that the DNR gave us the permission to do that, and then PLM was able to pull in some extra staff to get it done. So really happy with that, and something that we'll be implementing in the next season. Purple loosestrife treatments continued both on Keewatin and Forest Lake. Again, kind of the same story every year with this one, just things are going well. We're slowly dwindling those larger stands of purple loosestrife, and in some cases, we've actually stopped treating in certain locations where we're not finding it anymore. So that treatment has been going pretty well. And then the Moody Lake revegetation project. This is just a highlight for the program overall that I'm really happy with. We actually got to do a little bit of research teaming up with the University of Minnesota, which was exciting. These types of projects where you move plants from one lake to another have definitely been done before in the state, but this is going to contribute to a much broader study on what types of plants are most effective, how you plant them, certain things like that. So we were just super thrilled to be a part of that study, and there'll be a bit of follow-up next season to see if our project, specifically on Moody Lake, actually worked and that we're finding new species, because the goal of that project ultimately was to introduce some new native plants that weren't there before. And then lastly, just kind of wrap up the highlights for the AIS program. We did a carp survey on Forest Lake, and I should mention that we went through WSB, and their report on this is also on the district's website. I forgot to include it on the agenda, so you didn't see it there, but it will be on the board packet webpage for today. So you're able to take a look at that. But I'm happy to report that they estimated the population to be far below the threshold to at which common carp start to negatively impact water quality and clarity. I don't know. I just kind of went in thinking that there'd be a bunch in Forest Lake, but I'm happy to report that I was pleasantly surprised, and that they don't seem to be much of an issue. So good news there. And then moving on very quickly to the Watercraft Inspection Program year-end report. Just to preface this, I have a bit of an admission. I unfortunately found an error in some of my formulas that calculate the number of inspection survey numbers. Something wasn't adding up this year, so I went back to 2021 and 2022 and found that that error was from the past. I have since updated that and fixed this and re-uploaded the year-end watercraft inspection reports to make sure that they're as accurate as possible. So I was a little frustrated considering how meticulous I go through the data that I had an error in there, but I was at least happy that I found it and fixed it. So 2021 and 2022, if you're holding on to an old report, old copy of that, those reports will be overestimating the number of inspections that we performed, making it seem like they were busier years than they were. It doesn't change the hour totals at all. And the conclusions of those seasons, I'd say, are still the same in that they were successes in reaching the hour goals that we set out for. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. So with that out of the way, this year, kind of the theme, or overall, the program ran really great this year, very smoothly. Very happy with that. We had an hour goal estimate of about 3,600 hours. And this year we worked just over 4,000. In that time, we performed 7,903 watercraft inspections. So that in terms of hours, that was the second busiest year we've had in the district's history since 2014. And then that's also the third most inspections we ever performed. I said it a lot in the pre-recorded video, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing it by now, but that was largely due to having a really solid crew of inspectors, many of which were returning inspectors, and we've made a lot of changes in the past couple of years to encourage folks to keep coming back to the program, because not only does that make, selfishly our job a little easier with onboarding people, getting them on faster, but also they've encountered a lot of different scenarios and situations. They know how to handle them very well, and they bring a lot of expertise in that. And their quality of inspection, I think, is just a lot higher from having done the job for a number of seasons. So of our 9 inspectors this year in-house, 6 of which were returning. And I've already had a phone call yesterday and an email a few days prior to that with people asking about next summer. So I'm hoping to have another solid crew. But with that, I just wanted to keep it short. Those are kind of some of the highlights. Again, a lot more information in those reports and the recording, but happy to answer any questions if there are any still.
Are there any questions or comments?
No, I think that was perfect. I think anybody looking at this recording of the meeting will at least get this overview. Nice job, though. These are beautiful slides. Best
Oh,
graphics, I think.
It's probably the best
Yeah.
presentation we've
Yeah.
had since the program started, so.
Yeah.
We're going in the
Very
right
nice.
direction.
I appreciate that. You know, we wanted to
So-
switch up the format a little bit on that AIS year-end report, so I appreciate you
So
saying that.
again, if anybody wants to go through any particular sessions and get ready for the January meeting, if you have any questions that come up, you might want to send them to Garrett ahead of time.
Yeah.
So he can prepare some answers if he needs to be. With that, then, I think if there are no other questions, we can move on to the new business. And we've got a number of items here tonight we've got to go through. The first one is the Washington County Hazard Mitigation Plan. And this
Hi,
requires
everyone.
a motion on action, so.
Are you ready for me? Sorry, my voice cut out there.
Yeah, Mr. President, Manager, so this is an action item and we do have, what else then? Well, I'll let you introduce yourself. Is it Alyssa? To go over the county hazard mitigation plan, so on board.
So you want to go ahead?
Yep, you ready for me? Okay.
Yes. Do you want to give a
Well-
brief introduction of who you are and that, just for the board?
Sure. Yes, I planned on being there in person too, so my apologies. I was feeling a bit under the weather and I didn't want to share that just before the holidays here. My name is Allison Stroll. I'm with the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I work in emergency management. You probably know Doug Berglund. He's my boss. He lives in Forest Lake. So anyways, I've been in my position since May. I'm the senior planner. And I did not work a ton on the hazard mitigation plan, but I did do some tidying up and I added a few bits in a few sections and but it was pretty much complete when I started, which was nice. But I will be doing the full update in 5 years when that's due again. So we'll probably start that in about 3.5 years. So that will be all me. So you'll hear from me again. Anyways, I did just want to briefly go through kind of where we are and what hazard mitigation is. This is kind of what I like to share when I talk to cities and townships. So I'll breeze through it and then I'll take any questions. So just to begin, the Washington County All Hazard Mitigation Plan has been updated and approved by FEMA. The next step in this process is for cities, townships, and special districts to adopt the plan by signing the resolution. Once I receive the adoption resolutions, I send them to the state, and then they're submitted to FEMA. The mitigation plan update process leads to more resilient communities because it brings together officials from different departments to identify threats and vulnerabilities within their communities and to develop strategies to mitigate those threats. Adopting the current mitigation plan allows cities, townships, and special districts to maintain eligibility for federal funding, including the Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities grant and the Flood Mitigation Assistance grant, which is probably what you'd be most interested in. Those are offered through FEMA. These two grants, they currently have openings for the notice of interest to be submitted to HSEM, that's the State Emergency Management Department, by December 22nd. And it's a really easy thing to submit. Even if you're not quite sure, it's just one page. It's like who you are, where it matches one of the actions in the plan, when the new plan expires, and your project is basically what that is. And you submit it to HSCM, they compile them, and it takes them a while to go through them. And then if you're selected, they'll work with you to submit a formal application to FEMA. So this update process occurs every 5 years, with all 31 cities and townships adopting the plan. Not all special districts adopt the plan, but they're certainly welcome to, and you will need to if you want to go out for FEMA funding. That's a requirement. And this plan can only be adopted within 1 year of the new or the approval from FEMA. So I think the new, oh my gosh, it was just a few weeks ago is when they said our plan is good for 5 years from that date. I can get you the exact date if you need it, but it does need to be adopted within a year. Otherwise, they consider the plan outdated and it needs to be updated in order for anyone else to adopt it. So this is the 4th all hazard mitigation plan for the county. And so I took down some goals and objectives and strategies listed in the plan that could be turned into actions that would be projects for watershed districts. And some were like map areas of flooding, mitigation, shoreline erosion, or mitigation for shoreline erosion, purchase and install of electronic monitoring equipment, upgrading lift stations. I'm not quite sure if you deal with that or not, but it was listed as part of that, and I just kind of threw it in there just in case it's relevant. Implementing stormwater mitigation, prevention, and control programs, inventory possible locations where beaver dams within drainage channel may cause flooding of property or infrastructure, purchase and removal of existing structures located within a floodplain, replace or add culverts. So yeah, those were just some of the ones I picked out in one of the annexes. And typically how it goes in the update process is, so Kelly, I'm not sure if you met Kelly, she held the position before. She typically sends one broad email out to everyone at the beginning of the update process, and that's it. And then she kind of moves forward with the people that responded. So one suggestion, if you think you should have been included more in the update process, is to send me a few different names, and I can add that to our next correspondence, because if it gets missed, she just cruises on because there's so many people that are included in the update process. So that was one suggestion that we had to make sure no one is left off for the next update process. You can give me as many names as you want. So, is there any questions about hazard mitigation or the FEMA grants?
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Just so I understand, there's going to be grant dollars that the district can apply for, is that correct?
Yeah.
Through the county, and what's the limit on that?
It's through the state, and then so it would be through FEMA, I guess. So it's like you would submit the notice of interest to the Homeland Security Emergency Management of Minnesota, and they would put it into their pool. And then if you may or may not be selected to move forward to submit a formal application to FEMA then. And it could be, it takes a while. Like there are some cities that submitted an NOI last year and they're still waiting to see if they've gotten selected or not. But yeah, the hazard mitigation plan has to be adopted in order to apply for and receive FEMA funding.
Yeah. And what's the upper ceiling on the grant?
I don't know. Let's see. Okay. It's quite a bit. And that might be a better question for HSEM, because I don't know if there's so much money that FEMA has, but this is a competitive nationwide, these are nationwide grant programs.
Okay.
And so I don't know if the state has like limits per city, district. If they're like, oh, each project can only be this much. I haven't heard that, and maybe they don't even know yet. I'm not sure, but it does have a 25% match.
Okay.
All FEMA grants have a 25% match. That could be a cash match or in-kind
Mm-hmm.
match, so.
So it
Okay.
appears to me that, just kind of following up what Manager Anderson was getting at, is that seems to be more like a generic plan, and that you're identifying possible areas that could need improvement, but in more of a generic sense, and then you're instigating or you're encouraging them, the people that do the work on the ground, pick up some of those areas and actually do the due diligence and get the results that's gonna make an improvement in mitigation. Is that pretty much how it's gonna work?
Yeah, so we kind of do a broad scope in the plan. It's like, these are the hazards that could affect our county. These are specific areas that we know have issues, and then the individual cities have all sorts of tables that talk about things that they have done that is for hazard mitigation, and they have things that they would like to work towards. So every 5-year period, a town or city could say, we'd like to do this, this, and this. And
Okay.
some of those might be carried over from previous hazard mitigation plans. Some of them might be new, and having it in the plan doesn't say they have to do it. It's just, it has to be in the plan in order to apply for the funding for that project. So, and there's also like the goals and strategies that I mentioned, that's in a different section. And that's like all sorts of things that would benefit mitigation in the county. And so if you have a project that ties into one of those, you just have to list like the page number where that is in the plan. But it is kind of broad scoping, and it's a lot of it is like things that are financially pretty high to complete in some cities. And some things are more standard, maybe like increasing the amount of sirens or upgrading radios, things like that. Like updating lift stations, that's a city one a lot of times. Those are just like broad, things that a lot of the cities like to accomplish. Upsizing culverts, things like that. If you have a repetitive loss area or structure, upsizing your culvert or doing property buyouts, that's another thing that sometimes mitigation funds are for. And I mentioned too, we have the plan available. So we have the redacted version online because a lot of it is sensitive information. It highlights a lot of vulnerabilities of the cities, and we just don't want that information out there. But if you wanted to come in and you're like, oh, we have this project for this area of this city, and we want to work with the city on this project, can we come in and look at this section? We will have a print copy available in our office that you can come look at. We just don't want electronic copies floating out there.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to move this one forward.
Great.
The motion at the bottom of the sheet.
Yeah, I will make the motion to adopt resolution 23-12-01, adopting the Washington County All Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I will second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or discussion before we take a vote?
President Schmaltz,
Yeah.
Emily Hines has raised her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Emily, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. President, managers. I just wanted to add to that. Allison referred to HSEM, the Homeland Security Emergency Management. I've been in touch with the person over there, and I had reviewed, Washington County's mitigation plan. There's a lot of overlap with their goals and kind of the stuff that we at the watershed want to do, as Allison noted. And I put together that notice of interest and submitted it to the folks at HSEM. They came back and they said that we need to have a more specific project in mind, like a specific location for a project. And so, this is on our radar. We're familiar with the various grant programs that are out there. We're making the connections with those staff. And as soon as we get through this flood risk assessment and start identifying actual projects, then we'll be queued up and ready to go for these FEMA grant funds.
Okay, thanks, Emily.
We're good.
Any other comments or questions?
Just to echo what's been said already, but this is what we've been working, on and for is collaboration with multiple units of government so that we move up the ladder, if you will, for grants when you have cooperation going on. And it's perfect timing for this Greenway flood mitigation, upland, whatever, it's got different names, but it's all the same stuff that we've been looking at for the last 5 years. So I'm glad to see that we're getting to this point where we have cooperation with the county and the city in getting us, over to the goal line, and to have the grant dollars identified that are potentially there for us. That's perfect. So it's good timing.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, why don't we take a roll call vote, Beth?
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Alyssa. Appreciate the your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks, Alan.
Next item would be item B, permit 22036, the Mayorga Meadows
Be-
project.
Before we move on to that, Chisago County's plan is listed. Is that going to be talked about tonight?
Thank you, Manager Anderson.
Mhm.
Mike, do you have any? There was a write-up in part of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we don't have anybody from the county to speak to it. And the plan was dated 2017, so it probably, I don't know if they're also equally on a 5-year rotation or not. And I don't know if family has any additional information, but we can do some additional follow-up, but we would expect, being that it's really framed up after the federal program, that it would be very similar, especially since the state is also involved.
I can
Okay,
add,
so we can expect that at a future time then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, Emily, do you have anything else to add at this time, or?
yeah, I reached out to the Chisago County staff and their planning department, and they are actually updating their hazard mitigation plan right now. And the first planning team meeting will be in early 2024. So I got on that list, and I'll when they set a date for it, I will attend that and be part of the process. And then they aim to complete the plan near the end of 2024. And so I think by this time next year, we'll kind of have the same thing, but for Chisago County of adopting that plan of Chisago County.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Good question, Manager Anderson. Thank you. Okay, then let's moving on then, unless there's any other questions on that topic. If not, we'll move on to permit 22036.
As presidents, managers, we have both Mr. Grasky here and Mr. Sandiger to go over this permit application. Answer your questions. So Mike, if you want to take a lead on that, please.
Yeah, thank you. Permit 22036 Mayorga Meadows. It's located at 7580 250th Street, right on the southern end of Comfort Lake. The majority of the parcel actually drains to Little Comfort, and the rest goes to Comfort Lake. It's just a simple parcel split. Due to the 5 wetlands on site, they will need to buffer, but there's no construction planned at this time. And I'll let Greg explain the exhibit.
Yep, thanks, Mike. I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah, basically we've got about 14, 15 acres that's being split into two parcels. The southern parcel has an existing home on it, and that'll stay there. And then the northern parcel, I'm assuming they'll eventually build a house on that, but that's not authorized under this permit, so they'll need additional permitting if and when they decide to do that. So we're really only triggering the buffer rule here. The green areas are the wetlands and the purple areas are the buffers. And those buffers meet the district's buffer requirements. We do have one, well, couple pending items here. One, they still need to provide us a survey of the existing buffer vegetation, and then depending on the quality of that vegetation, revegetation plan if necessary. And then execution of a maintenance agreement for the buffers. And then a couple stipulations. They need to place those buffer markers around the wetlands there. And then, as I mentioned, this permit doesn't authorize any earth movement or construction, so that's a stipulation of the permit. That's all I got, so I'm asking for approval with this issuance upon receipt of those items.
So if somebody would like to make a motion,
I'll make the motion to approve permit application 22-036 in Wyoming, and with the stipulations as outlined by our engineering firm.
thank you, Manager Anderson. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Okay, are there any additional questions or comments before we take a vote? I had just one question, Greg. When you talk about the signage that goes around the wetlands, are those just put into the ground, or is there any kind of a concrete reinforcement to provide long-term stability of that sign?
No, they're generally just posts driven into the ground, and the signs are quite small. So
okay. So it hasn't been an issue of people taking them out and just ignoring the issue?
I can answer to that, Mr. President.
Go ahead,
We have
Mike.
been, this year, Victoria is doing inspections of all of our maintenance instruments that we have, including buffers. And there are some where buffer signs need to be replaced, but the majority are, the signs are where they're supposed to be.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. I'm glad that we've got some data that indicates what the real, activity is out there. So that's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask Beth to do a roll call vote.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries then. Thank you. Moving on to item C, the permit 23015, the Belts Park Improvement Phase 1. I think this was just discussed briefly at the last meeting, if I recall.
Correct, and then, Mr. President Managers, again, we'll have, Mr. Sandiger and Mr. Grasky, speak to this. There's an additional memo trying to address some of the questions there. And there's maybe some additional discussion we may want to have with the board on this, but, right now, I think, again, maybe Mr. Sandiger, if you want to lead off, and then let Mr. Grasky, go over his memo as well.
Yeah, thank you. So we have the same submittals as the November meeting. So they did not submit anything new. The main new thing we have submitted is that supplemental memo from Greg. And then I just also like to add that we had received the complete application on November 2nd. And I can let Greg go more in depth into his memo.
yep, glad to do that. yeah, so there was a few questions that came up when I presented this at the last board meeting. If my memory served me better, I probably could have answered those at the last meeting, but it had been a while, and I guess I'm getting older and my memory's not as sharp as it used to be. One of the questions that was asked was, is there any space to, instead of doing the treatment on site, is there any space downstream to incorporate some BMPs? And the water, basically it's picked up, there's stormwater pipes under South Shore Drive. It gets picked up under there, and it basically goes straight across the street between two single family home lots, and then goes into the lake into, well, kind of one of those backwater channels. So there is no space there to do like a regional treatment. It would require probably buying out one of those homes or something. So I think that kind of addresses that question. The other thing that came up was what's going on with St. Peter's Church, which is just to the west of here. So that St. Peter's Church is in Rice Creek Watershed District. The topography, most of that site historically drained to Rice Creek Watershed District. There was a small chunk of the parking lot, well, not small, about an acre, that historically drained to South Shore Drive. But back in 2016, Rice Creek Watershed had reached out to myself and district staff to discuss the permit application that they had gotten for that project. And as part of that, what ultimately happened is they added an additional catch basin and stormwater pipe to pick up that water that had historically been going to South Shore Drive and route it to the back of their property where their treatment basin was being put in. So effectively that untreated runoff is now being routed to that pond in Rice Creek. There's, under really large events, a little of that does still go to South Shore Drive, but from a water quality perspective, you know, all normal storm events are, for the most part, being routed and treated. So there's not really a need to pick that up and treat that in the park. I think those were the two main questions from the last meeting. There's a couple other things I included in my memo, just kind of for completeness on this discussion. The question had come up of whether we could maybe treat some more of, I guess, South Shore Drive and the drainage areas associated with that underground at the park there. It's maybe physically possible. You really have to do a feasibility study to determine that. But the reality is this is right on the border of the watershed. So there's not a whole lot of drainage area you could actually get there. So, you know, at best, maybe you're going to get maybe a couple pounds of phosphorus per year. If you could actually get that water there and there's enough elevation to drain it and get it back to the lake. The cost of a project like that's going to be quite expensive. So, you know, without doing the whole full feasibility study, my opinion is that the cost benefit probably isn't going to make sense based on the metrics that the district has. But is something maybe physically possible there? Yes. Financially, would it make sense? Probably not. The other thing I just wanted to throw out there is there is a collection point that might be a good spot to put a hydrodynamic separator in. It's on the opposite side of the park, so it really wouldn't necessarily be part of the park project. But if that South Shore Drive gets redone at some point, that would be a good spot to put an HDS structure. Or if, you know, that road doesn't get maybe developed by the time phase 2 comes along, maybe we would talk about adding that in. However, you're probably going to increase the cost of that by 3 to 4x because you're going to have to tear out street, curb and gutter, utilities. So it really would be much more effective to do it with the street. But I just wanted to also add that and kind of put that in the record. So, you know, if that street project comes up, or if by the time phase 2 of this park comes along, we may want to reconsider that. So a little long-winded there, but I wanted to make sure I addressed all the board's questions, I am recommending that go ahead and approve the permit as I presented it at the last board meeting, and then open it up for discussion on any of those other points I mentioned.
Good, well, appreciate you following up with that, Greg. So good job in digging into that situation. So it's good to know what the facts really were. So it's good to hear that that's all being treated. So that's very encouraging. Okay, so let's move ahead then. Let's, we do a motion in a second, and then we can vote on it. Or if there's any additional questions, we could try to take them. I'll move to approve the permit application 23015 with the conditions stated in EOR's November 8th, 2023 memorandum. And do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second, but you need to correct it to the 22 and the first two digits. You said 23. It says approved permit 22-015, what I'm looking at.
Yes.
Mine's
So-
23.
Mine's 23.
No, well. This is Belts
I'm
Park.
sure Mr. Satter can confirm that's does the,
I
The correct-
believe
oh,
it should be
right.
23. My
Okay.
memo has the wrong number.
right.
Okay,
I was looking at the last one and I was going to comment about how long some of the, maybe
Right.
it's the next one, how long some of these take to get.
So just confirming the number is then 23-015. Is that right,
Okay.
Mike?
That is the correct permit number.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll second.
And I think Manager Anderson seconded that. So then
Yes.
we, are there any questions or comments before we take a vote? Okay, then Beth, if you could please call the vote.
Absolutely. Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the next permit, which is number 22040, the County State 8 Highway 33.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the last of the three permits for tonight's meeting. The road work is for CAS 33. It includes widening a half-mile stretch with associated pedestrian work from 19th to Broadway. And then it triggered our stormwater erosion control and water course and basin crossing rules. And I'll let Greg discuss those rules in more depth.
Yep, thanks, Mike. Like Mike mentioned, this is County State Aid Highway 33. If you know where the Menards is, this is just kind of south of that. The Menards is at the intersection there of Broadway and County State Aid 33. They're actually going to reroute the entrance for Menards to be a little bit further away from the intersection for safety purposes. And then as part of that reroute, they're going to do a kind of a wet pond within that new area that they're creating there. They're also going to put in a dry pond a little bit further to the south there. And then there is a few points where there really just isn't room to put traditional treatment in. So they're going to put actually 3 hydrodynamic separators in to capture sediment and debris before getting into the wetland. So the combination of those stormwater features meet the district's rate and water quality and volume requirements. The other part of this permit is the ditch crossing. So I have that highlighted there on the map. Basically, there's a large wetland to the west that drains through that ditch crossing, goes into ditch on the other side, eventually makes its way down through Bixby Park to the Sunrise River, eventually to Comfort Lake. Long path from here. They are going to replace that culvert with the same size pipe and same size inverts. It's a 48-inch RCP pipe. The pipe will be longer, so they did need to do H&H modeling to assure that that didn't affect water levels. That was the case. The impacts were very negligible, less than 1/10 of a foot. And it's not really gonna have any other negative impacts since it's the same size and invert. So it does meet the requirements of Rule 6 for the water course crossing. And then for the erosion control plan, they have a significant large stormwater pollution prevention plan that was submitted as part of this project, and that does meet the district's erosion control requirements. So I'm recommending approval. We just have one item here, either our standard maintenance instrument for the BMPs and the crossing, or if the county wants, they could put together a more detailed cooperative agreement like we have with the city of Forest Lake that would cover this and future projects, but I guess it's up to the county whether they want to go through that extra step or not. And then the one stipulation is as built of all the stormwater infrastructure as part of the project. That's all I got. Happy to answer questions on this one.
So the county's footing the bill for all of this?
I would assume they're getting I know they're getting state aid dollars, so
Okay.
it's state funding, counties
Mhm.
overseeing and probably paying for the design and whatnot.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Just one comment on my part. I noticed that we're doubling the impervious from 1.6 to 3.7 acres. And this is the first time I can recall on a rate control summary chart, which is on page 2, that there isn't significant improvement over what was before. So I just thought that was kind of curious, and I didn't really know how to ask that question of why it's not better. Because in all the other ones we've seen, there was always a 10 or 15 or a 30% gain in the parameter. Here, where the only slight gain we have is, 100-year flood situation. So
Yes,
any
I mean,
comments, just from a learning experience, if you could help share that with us, Greg?
Sure. Right, so the rules just say they have to match rates.
Right.
On a lot of our redevelopment projects, where there isn't any existing treatment, just by default, by the amount of volume that they're incorporating there, we end up getting some rate reductions. But in this case, they're actually adding impervious, so it's not just, a reconstruction, and they're very squeezed with space, right? So, it took everything they could do just to meet the rules here. So that's the reason why there isn't kind of that reduction that we have been seeing on other permits. It's not a requirement, but it's nice when we do see that.
Good. Well, thanks for that explanation.
They have a lot of devices though built into the plan that is helping to mitigate that additional water. I mean, that's what I saw out of all of this. So
Yep.
it's
They've
kind of
doubled it, and we haven't lost any ground at all, which is what the
no,
goal is.
that's right.
And they had to get some pretty expensive tools to catch that extra water, because those are expensive projects they're putting in. So I was just kind of curious. So, okay, that's good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, then let's do, we don't have a motion yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We need a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve permit 22-040. Is that the correct number, right? With conditions stated in EOR's December 11th, 2023 memorandum.
We need a second for that? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? If not, then Beth, could you please do a roll call vote?
Sure, yeah. Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on now, the item E is actually a closeout on our County Road 50 iron enhanced sand filter project. And this is discussion and action also.
Correct, Mr. President. So a memo from the district engineer, pretty straightforward. Another, great project we just included in this, accounts payable, the last, payment for the contractor. But if the board has any questions or comments, make a motion, go ahead.
Why don't we get the motion on the books first, and then we can see if there's any comments or questions.
I will make the motion as presented here, moving to accept the engineer's certificate of completion and authorize final payment of $53,764.41 to Dressel Contracted.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Now, are there any questions or comments? Again, I think this is a great project, and we hope we can find more of these in the future, although we're running out of big opportunities. But, so good job. Any other thoughts? Okay, hearing none, let's take a roll call vote.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Tay,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on then to the next item is the 103D housekeeping items. And I just want to thank Council Holtman for taking the time to send out a letter here. Maybe you don't have a chance to see it, but just talking a little bit about one of the important parts of this large document that we had to look at. So that was helpful, I think, in putting things in perspective. And I think if we follow his advice here, we can maybe focus our discussion on 2 or 3 areas that he summarizes in his particular letter. So with that, is Council Holtman going to handle that?
Yes, I know he's had some connection issues, but he's been back on here for quite a while. And again, so I just had brought this to Mr. President, to your attention about this. And I know that council at the conference had indicated that there's a sort of a window of time for this. So I don't know if you want to proceed with questions or just let Mr. Holtman do a little summary first and then take questions.
I think we're running on pretty good on time. I think it might be helpful if Mr. Holtman would just focus on the 3 or 4 key issues that are probably of most interest to the board. The rest of it is more boilerplate, as I understand it, as it pertains to plans and setting up plans and so forth in terms of how it's done. So unless Mr. Holtman thinks we should go broader than that, then certainly we can make time to do that. Chuck, do you want to offer some comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, managers, and again, I hope I stay with you through the discussion. I'm getting disconnected and coming back on. And I did send out the note today. And I'm sorry it was a bit later, but it just occurred to me at a late point that you would have gotten this fairly lengthy markup of the statute and perhaps applied yourself industriously to making your way through it all without really maybe being clear on the purpose and the extent to which it is relevant to this watershed district. Can I ask which of you haven't had a chance to look at if everybody was able to see my email this afternoon, I won't repeat myself.
I think it'd be helpful to mention the 3 points at the bottom of your memo this afternoon, which are the 3 things that certainly can impact us as a watershed and as a manager on the watershed. So I think the whole board should be aware of those 3 points. So Chuck, I thought it was very, very valuable.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, those are three discrete items. They're not very lengthy in the markup. The one of them is that there's been ongoing question about
Oops.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone. Okay,
Before we're done with this topic, though, I did have 3 areas that I wanted to bring up to Chuck and get his take on including those as well. I've been working with Bowser, Mr. Jaski, primarily over the last several years to get something like this going, because it's so important if the agency's on board with these kinds of cleanup changes. And a lot of it is just clarifying, making sure that everybody's got, instead of having loose language, it's very much tighter language, so that we don't have people misinterpreting or reinterpreting what the law is meant to be. So I think this exercise is really good, but there are 3 areas. We don't have to talk about them tonight if you don't want to, but I'd certainly like to give those to Chuck in writing so that he can look at them and see if that would be.
I think that
okay.
would be a good suggestion, Manager Anderson, if you could send them to him and then he can respond back, but I can just cover these 3 points. They're pretty straightforward, and maybe you have a copy of the memo in front of you, but the first point deals with the principal place of business, which is reinforcing the fact that the watershed district office has to be in the watershed's legal boundary. And absent, of course, the current Bowser exception that exists, which nobody seems to have ever used. So that says that we really have to have our headquarters in the boundary on this new regulation. The second point is it gives us explicit authority to the county board to remove any manager that is appointed for just cause. So again, that gives the county board the right, and I'm not sure whether they had a right before or not, but it clearly gives them the right to remove any manager for just cause. And then the third point is to
President Schmaltz.
yes.
Council Holman is back. In
Okay.
the meeting, if you want to defer to him on anything.
Yeah, Council Holman, I covered your first 2 points, and maybe you can cover the last point.
He's muted though, so. All right.
He's unmuted now. I'm not sure.
Well, the last point. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, I'm sorry. Each time I'm reconnected, it comes with the mute on and then I can't get the button to unmute me. So I'm sorry.
So I covered the first 2 points. If you want to cover the third point, Chuck?
Well, the third point that it's arisen in a couple of the One Watershed, One Plan procedures, one involving a client of ours outstate, where Bowser took the position that when a watershed district joins a One Watershed, One Plan entity and adopts the plan, it has to relinquish its own plan. So basically everything thereafter, it doesn't get to guide its work. It has to run everything through the entity. They've said different things in different places. And we discussed that with them, and we put this language in to make clear and consistent that a watershed district always keeps its own plan and basically adopts the One Watershed, One Plan as a part of its own plan, and then of course can continue to do things on its own pursuant to its own authorities outside of the One Watershed, One Plan.
Yeah, that's a very extremely important point. In fact, I can remember the first meeting Mike and I went to on this One Watershed, One Plan. I leaned across from him and said to him, "This looks to me like it's going to eliminate watershed districts." But this will certainly prevent that if it goes through, right?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 points. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of whether it gets approved or not, because we have to wait and see. And Manager Anderson, maybe you want to just mention to Chuck what you're going to write him about quickly?
Yeah, I had some points, Chuck, that I wanted to review with you to see if you felt they could be included with this round. But this is language clarification issues primarily, where the statute says one thing in one area and then in another area it's exactly the opposite. So the first one is in section 201 of 103D, And it talks about the broad authorities of the watershed districts. And then there is conflicting language in 335. And so it contradicts what is stated in that 201 section. And then the others deal with the funds of the district in it's 905 subdivision, 911 and 915 and 921. So I guess there's 4. But it talks about in the first 905 subsection about the limits to the general fund levy ability. It's been raised, of course, that we worked on for the last several years. So that finally got done. However, it's still a limiting factor. And the perfect condition would be to take away that dollar figure and let each district go up to that maximum levy amount or mill rate amount. And there is language in 911 section that talks about the managers may make an annual levy for the general performance of its plan and the budget. And there's no limit imposed in that section, giving them that authority to budget, to levy based on their budget needs. In point 915, there's one sentence that brings that limit back to that ceiling, even though it's higher, and stating again that the maximum levy may not exceed the amount provided in section 905, and that's the certification to the county paragraph. And the last sentence is that they have to refer back to that limiting language under 905. So to me, those things are at odds, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about them and see if we can't at least start getting the legislature to understand that they've got conflicting language.
Well, thanks, Manager Anderson. I think this should be taken offline between you and Manager, Council Holtman. And so I'm glad you brought that up. If there's anything else, maybe you want to send him a note giving those specific areas again.
I will.
He hasn't. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other comments or questions, or do we have to take any action on this? It's just mainly for discussion if I see here.
That's correct.
So I guess we have to just wait and see what happens, and we'll see how far it goes. So are there any other comments or questions? If not, then we can move on to year-end financials and management reimbursement requests.
Mr. President, just as the memo notes that we're getting to that point for the year end, and just want to remind the managers and all involved, if there's any reimbursements that are going to be requested, deadline is for next month, and same with, we're trying to make sure that we reach out to all of our contractors, services, and make sure we're from an audit standpoint, that is a requirement. So we'll have until next month to conclude that for the governor's manual.
So again, a reminder to get all of our stuff in hopefully by the end of the year, but certainly by the end of January, right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions on that? If not, then we'll move on. To old business, the 2024 budget and levy.
Mr. President, managers, just, we included this, kind of provide an update on a couple things. One, just in case there was some additional conversation, with anyone from the public, but also to address, some of the other things that staff have been working on. And so we're just looking to then, verify that the board, does not intend to make any changes to the budget, and that we would proceed with communicating to the counties accordingly on the final levy.
So do somebody want to make the motion, and we'll second and then open it up to discussion? I'll move to make no change to the 2024 budget or certified levy at this time. And then we need a second to that motion.
I will second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Then we'll open it up to discussion or questions. Okay, it looks like there's no change, at this point, or at least we have to vote on it. That's why don't we do a vote on this and see where we stand?
Absolutely. Manager Backy,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
No,
Okay, motion carries then. Thank you. So this will be this is what we decided last of September, and this will carry forward to next year then. Right, correct. Okay. Okay, well, we're over that now, so we'll move on. Thank you. So the next item is report of staff.
Mr. President, managers, so just wanted to make a reminder that there will be a special meeting in early January, and Emily has been coordinating that. We're looking
I
to,
believe it's the 9th, from 5:30 to 7:30.
yes, thank you, Beth. So that'll be on the ISG report, and this has related to office space. Also, you want to note that on that Little Comfort grant that we awarded a couple of years ago, several years ago, and so we had tried a couple different things, including that gravel pit piece, and then we had made a final run at Bowser to make some additional modifications, but that is not going, they did not approve that extension, if you will, for what was provided in our draft proposal. So from that standpoint, the remaining amount would be in the accounts payable to be returned to Bowser. So while it's a little unusual, but we do feel though that given everything that we're at, and we did have the appraisal came back for that property by Little Comfort. You know, we're very fortunate that those landowners are willing to sell us a couple acres or so, to actually 2.5. And so we're looking to probably set up something with the board at the next opportunity to share that with them and then go through that, some of the next steps. So we're in line, at least from that standpoint, to have a very strong application next year for a similar iron hand sand filter, just like we closed out earlier today or this evening. So to do something up there, and given the price point of what that would cost, fiscally, this will probably be a better outcome for the district.
Good.
Any questions or comments on Mike's input? Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Yes, sir, was kind of one thing. We'll start working on year-end things as well, just, you know, and I know Amy's been working on some of the reporting stuff that we'll do normally, and you'll see in March or so.
Yeah, I would like to get a year-end report by the year end if we can, or first part of January, so we can actually, as a board, go through this and maybe wrap it up by the end of January or early February, so we don't drag this review process and salary change too far into next year. Okay, any other questions of Mike on the administrator report? Okay, if
I'll
not,
just note that Blaine did include his summary slides in the board packet on the different things, and managers, if you've been driving in Scandia Trail at 97 south of Third Lake, you will see that Peterson Company had the award or what that contract, they've started out there working on that. Also just a reminder that our office manager will be starting early January, so.
Okay, good. Okay, EOR report?
Yep, thank you, Mr. President and managers. Yeah, just a few things to update you guys on. Like Mike mentioned, we got our two active projects that are gearing up here for winter construction. Did want to just mention our flood assessment project that is well underway. Team has made a lot of progress this month, and I think there's a couple meetings set up next month with district staff and some member communities to start looking at some of those results. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was the Highway 8 project that we've been hearing about for, I don't know, Manager Anderson can tell us, probably the last 25 or 30 years.
Yes.
But we did meet with the county and their consultant to get an update on that project. Apparently through their environmental review process, they identified a couple long-eared bats along the corridor, which are an endangered species. So they're going to need to work through some permitting with, I believe, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and figure that out. That's kind of put the whole project on hold temporarily. They're hopeful that they can work through that and continue moving forward. They did share with us just kind of a concept layout and potential locations for BMPs along the corridor. They had about, I think, 9 to 10 potential ponding or BMPs identified along that corridor. We also talked about where that crossing is going to be between Little Comfort and Comfort Lake, and they're actively working on narrowing the cross section there to hopefully minimize any fill or impacts to those lakes as much as possible, and we'll likely need to use sheet piling to further reduce any need for any fill along there. So I think that's moving in a good direction. The other thing we talked about was the district's desire to potentially capture runoff from the city of Forest Lake that's coming up the Highway 61 corridor. I've mentioned this to them before in past meetings, but want to continue to keep it on the radar because it seems like a good time to tackle that urban area that's flowing to the north there. The hope would be to do kind of a large treatment facility in kind of the intersection there. And then as that water flows north into the wetland, at least one of the concepts we've had through kind of greenway visioning and whatnot is doing a large wetland restoration project and potentially even remeandering the Sunrise River. Obviously that would take a lot of property acquisition, but at a minimum, it'd be nice that if we could get kind of that pre-treatment area that we envisioned incorporated with this project. We're going to set up a second meeting that will include MnDOT in the new year at some point to try to further push them to move in that direction. So overall, it was a good meeting. They indicated that, you know, if all the stars aligned, probably the earliest construction would happen would be 2026. My guess is it's probably at least another year out from that. And I mean, the reality is they've been saying 3 years down the road for the last 20 years. So it's hard to say, but we're going to continue to keep in touch with them and kind of coordinate our projects and their desires and hopefully get a lot of treatment incorporated with that project.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Manager Anderson.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments and maybe a question in there somewhere, but first of all, my first meeting on Highway 8 was in 1994. Can you believe that? So yes, And I
30
think it had
years.
been going on 5 years before that. But anyway, getting back to their environmental review that they're doing right now, did they mention Blanding's turtles at all? Because they were quite, I wouldn't call it heavy, but there was a good amount of Blanding's turtles when we first moved here, and that is on the endangered species list. It's been a while since I've seen one squished on Highway 8, but that was, I think the last one was just a couple of years ago. So I wondered if that had been identified.
Yep, they did mention that. I don't know if they actually found any Blanding's turtles, but they were talking about incorporating some critter crossings underneath the highway. So, we got the big culvert, but that's mostly submerged. So they're talking about putting some additional culverts higher up that would allow turtles or other critters to go underneath the highway as opposed to over the top. Whether the animals go that way or not, I guess, be up to them.
That was going to be my next comment / question. So if they were going to incorporate those, so I'm glad to hear that part.
It sounds like they were planning on it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for Greg? Or comments? All right, thank you, Greg.
Yep, thank you. And just want to say happy holidays to everybody and hope you have a good new year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Same to you.
Thanks.
Moving on to Smith Partners, Chuck.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chair, except as well to wish everybody a good holiday.
Thank you. Thank you, and same to you. Before the treasurer.
The treasurer's report today is that December's is going to look a lot better than the fund balances did on November, so that's a good thing. But we have 294,000 that we need to transfer, so that's the first thing. We have bills to pay of $241,007.79, and so we need to have that. Oh, I'm sorry, 292,146.57. I forgot that second page there. So that's the amount that is part of the transfer, and we will be working on making sure that our general fund is balanced out before the end of the year. That'll happen here in the next couple of weeks. I talked to Mike about that yesterday. So that's it. So I'll make that a motion that the board approve the transfer amount of 294,000 and that we pay the bills as presented.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. I'll second that motion. So let's do a roll call vote.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Approval and summary of the board direction, if there was any today. Council
Are we
Holman?
going to do reports? Are we going to take some time for a
Oh,
report?
I'm sorry. My apology. I skipped number 12. Yeah, report of officers and managers. So I'll start first. The only thing I want to reinforce is that our meeting on January 9th, we've got the ISG report, so it's fairly lengthy. So I had staff produce some copies if you want to pick up a copy at the office. But I encourage everybody to go through that carefully and then open up your mind and start jotting some thoughts and some action plans down of what we need to get done this year. So we can have a good work session at that meeting and hopefully start to lay out a more specific plan and decide who we might want to look to have us help us with this project. So that was my main point. And again, I want to wish everybody a good holiday season and Happy New Year when we come back. So with that, I'll have then Chris, you want to go next?
Nothing other than Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Dave, Lucky?
I just want to report that I did enjoy the Minnesota Watersheds Conference. It was some great breakout sessions. I learned a lot, met a lot of really smart people. and enjoyed Dr. Seeley's presentation on climate. I want to thank Manager Anderson and Chuck Holtman for their writing skills in refining our resolution. As you recall, we submitted a resolution providing education and outreach for the expansion of watershed districts across the state. And thanks to Manager Anderson for helping me present the resolution to the delegates. It did pass with the votes of 26 to 16.
Good.
Good job. Yes. Great job. Okay, Manager Anderson's next.
Yep, I will shorten mine to just a few things here. This is bringing to the attention of our permit area. There is a dirt pile that's been on one of the businesses on Greenway for about 6 months, and it's not covered. It's been not even tossed around on their lawn. I did talk to the city about it, City of Wyoming, and I was told that they held the permit on that project because it wasn't complete and their plans weren't, but said that that the district gave a permit for bringing some dirt on site. And so it would be the district's responsibility to address that. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. If that's not the true facts, just, let me know. And, I can talk with the city again. The other thing I bring up practically every year about this time is the parking at the LaPointe business right along the Sunrise River. Is back to encroaching on the 100-foot setback that's part of the conditional use for that property. And so that is happening every single winter season, and their gravel driveway and parking area keeps encroaching more and more toward the Sunrise. So I would like staff to look into that and talk with the city about correcting that problem. Because it's been going on for too long. A minor little thing, and only affects the public, but on the website, when we have our meetings posted, it says on the day of the meeting that this event has passed. And so I think I talked to Bobby about that before she left, but if somebody can look into that and make sure that that gets taken off, because it's very misleading. And if anybody wanted to join the meeting today, for example, they might have been led astray. The last two things are kind of fun things, but if my math is correct, 2024 will be our 25th year of existence. So I think that we should start thinking about how we're going to celebrate that and get the public involved. So that would be fun. And the last thing I want to bring up is those beautiful pictures of all of our lakes that Mike showed us at the last meeting. I'm wondering if staff can think about and talk about making those available to the lake associations. That would be a good fundraiser for lake associations, even if there was a small fee involved with those, but I can't say 100% of the people living on the lake would like to have one of those, but a good percentage would. So give that some thought, and we can talk about that in the new year. And I'll add my best wishes to everybody for a happy holiday, and we'll see you in 2024.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Manager Taves.
Yeah, a couple of things. Today I received the notice from DNR that the permit was approved for the capstone project, at least for my property. And with that was an attachment to basically be on the lookout for the blinding turtle. So yeah,
wonderful.
The signs have gone up today already, and I kind of had a chuckle. There's a small sign alongside that says "Coming soon." I like that. Last week, I was contacted by Sherry Sterling from the township that Channel 5 was coming out to do a piece on the round barn. And she asked if I'd run over and talk with them. So Matt from the road maintenance crew and I were there. And they did a whole bunch of filming and a lot of conversation. And that should be showing up sometime in January.
Oh, Wonderful.
And I used that opportunity to slip in that, given the design of that barn, Mr. Moody had to be somewhat forward-thinking, and that he would probably approve of the projects there to help clean up the lake that are gonna happen on his property. I don't know if that'll get in there or not, but I tried. And a happy New Year and holiday wishes to everybody.
Thanks, Manager Dave. Same to you. Okay, good. Let's move on then to 13, summary and approval of board direction. Council Holman, they have anything for us tonight?
Mr. Chair and managers, a couple of things. One is that President Schmaltz asked if staff would provide to him a copy of the agreement with Forest Lake and the Association for AIS share work and cost sharing, as well as the 2023 reconciliation. Then Manager Anderson's comments regarding the 103D revisions, which she will communicate to me and we'll connect on that. And then most recently, Manager Anderson's several items, the dirt pile on Greenway, parking encroaching on the Sunrise River setback, the website language about the event having passed, and then the availability of lake pictures to lake associations, all for staff to follow up on. And then I guess I would just ask Emily, if you're on the meeting here, whether there's anything that I might have missed during a moment when I was not connected.
Okay, thank you, Council Holman. Is there anything else to be added to that from anyone?
I have nothing
Okay.
to add.
Okay, thanks, Emily. Good. All right, that brings us into adjournment. Our next regular board meeting was mentioned, the next special meeting is January 9th from 5:30 to 7. And then can I inquire whether there are going to be sandwiches served at that meeting, or do we, what the policy is going to be on that?
We can plan on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just have some.
And then on January 11th then is our next board meeting, regular board meeting at 6:30. So with that, again, I wish everybody a happy holiday season and had a good year this year. Hopefully have a great year next year, greater, I should say. And look forward to 2024. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, whoever that, Manager Anderson, I'll give it to, and then the second of that, Manager Taves, you want to second that?
I will second that.
Okay, thank you. Beth, we want to do a roll call? Vote?
Yeah, Manager Baki,
Aye, and happy holidays.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz,
Aye,
Manager Anderson.
Aye.
great. Okay, thanks, everyone. We'll see you next year and have a good rest of the year.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Weather out there, huh?
Take care, bye-bye.
Tarzan.
All right, good night, everyone.